200 to 300 talks every year, so that's a lot if you do the math. He keeps them busy, so he doesn't always have time to be at the show, to be at all the reptile shows and expos and everything. But we've known him over the years. He's always really friendly, and we're super excited to have him back doing a talk about adventures in reptile education. Please give a big warm welcome to Brian Gundy.
So how's everybody doing tonight? Excellent. Well, like Edgar said, my name is Brian Gundy, and I own a business called For Goodness Snakes. And I'm actually a ball python breeder. I produce anywhere from 100 to 150 baby ball pythons per year and sell them to people like us all over the country. And I'll give you guys some history about myself. I was born and raised and still live in Campbell, which is right next door to San Jose. And all of my life I've been into animals of all different types. So growing up, not only did I have your normal dogs and cats as pets, in fact, dogs are by far my favorite animal on the planet. But growing up, I had a unique fascination for lots of different types of animals. So not only did I have your normal dogs and cats as pets, but I also had a raccoon as a pet, I had a possum, I had a great horned owl, a red-tailed hawk, I had lots of snakes, lizards, frogs, toads, salamanders. I had turtles, tortoises, pigeons, doves, cockatiels, parakeets, mice, rats, hamsters, guinea pigs, rabbits, ferrets, fish, you name it, I've had it as a pet. When I was in high school, I started competitively racing pigeons. And at the same time, I became a what do you call it? Not a beginner, but a falconer, a beginner falconer. And Ricky, right? When I met Rick tonight, I was like a little kid. He's a master falconer. So to a falconer, that's like, it's way up here, and it's really cool to meet someone like him. So when I graduated from high school, I started working at an animal hospital. And lucky for me, I worked with a veterinarian that specialized in exotic animals. So not only did I get to work with dogs and cats at the animal hospital, but I also got to work with animals such as mountain lions. I worked with cheetahs, African lions, wolves, chimpanzees, anteaters, lots and lots of reptiles, lots of birds of prey. And then about 30 years ago or so, I started a business called For Goodness Snakes. Hey, Aaron. And at that time, I was breeding and selling colubrids, which are the king snakes, milk snakes, and corn snakes. And I did that for about 10 or 12 years, and was actually in the process of selling out that collection when I saw my first photograph of a pied. And like Edgar said, I fell in love in a moment. I had never seen a snake that looked like a pied. And at that time, pieds were selling for $25,000 each. So I took the money that I had gained from selling out my colubrid collection and then reinvested into ball pythons. And that's basically what I breed and sell today. I've probably been breeding and selling ball pythons for 25 years now, maybe 30. And so let's go further back. When my kids, who are now in their 30s, were in elementary school, I was invited by their science teacher to come in and do an educational presentation about reptiles. I had never done one before, and I thought, okay, I can do that. And so I went in, I took a day off work, and spent the whole day just doing one class after another, introducing reptiles to the kids. And this was K through 6th grade, I think it was. And finished that day and had a blast. And about 2 weeks later, a lady called me up and reminded me that I had done a program for the science teacher at their school, and wondered if I could do a reptile birthday party for her son. And I thought, sure, why not? I can do that for you. And she said, well, how much do you charge? And I said, no, it's okay. I don't want to. You keep your money. And she says, no, I'll pay you $100. And I thought, oh, wow. And this is 20-something years ago, probably. And I thought, wow, okay. And so I did that party, and what was interesting is during that party, 7 kids got bit by snakes. I had nothing but colubrids at that time, and most of what I had were cow kings, mountain king snakes, Nuevo Leons. I had, the Lamprepeltis nigritas, which is the Mexican black, and I had a couple boa constrictors, but everything else was colubrids, and 7 kids got bit. So from there, I started doing more and more reptile birthday parties. Maybe another 3 months later, somebody else called me up, and another 6 months later, someone else. The following year, I was doing probably about 3 or 4 programs a month, which I thought, well, that's great. And then, kind of fast forward, about 10 years ago, I got laid off my job after working 30 years at the same company. I was manufacturing manager, number 2, in charge of the whole company. I got laid off. I felt sorry for myself for a couple days. And then I wondered if I could turn my hobby into a business, which I had already kind of gotten my feet wet doing the birthday parties. And so I started going out, doing cold calls at schools, unannounced, uninvited. I used to walk in with an albino ball python wrapped around my shoulder, and it wasn't uncommon for me as I walked in, every secretary in the office would start running away. Down the hall, there were times when they would actually knock over chairs. They were running so fast. So I rethought my process and decided to go ahead and keep one of the snakes that I had in a duffel bag, and then ask the person, the secretary, and introduce myself, have a flyer, and then just say, would you guys like to see one of my animals? And once in a while they'd say yes. And once I started bringing the snakes out, it was so interesting to me because the whole office would stop. And people out of the woodwork, out of their offices, teachers or principals or whatever, would start coming toward me, and I'd hand a snake off here, a lizard off here, and before you know it, I started doing educational presentations full time. I received a 6-month severance package from my previous boss, and so in my mind, I had 6 months to basically prove that I could do this and make money and pay my bills. So within about 6 months, I was doing probably 15 or 20 programs a month. Don't quote me on those numbers, they're probably high. But now over 50,000 children have now handled my animals. We have never had a single issue. As soon as I got rid of the colubrids, we were fine. And I bring blue-tongued skink with this guy right here. I bring a Tegu, which I'm going to bring out in a few minutes. I bring 4 ball pythons of various color morphs, which I'm going to bring out at the end of the program. And so when I do my programs, and I do them for a very large range of ages, preschools are actually one of my favorite, or not, I shouldn't say favorite because they're not my favorite, but they're one of the most probably the most common program for me to do is for preschools. So when I do a preschool, I have to come in thinking a totally different mindset. Remember, these kids are probably between 2 and 4 years old, so we're not going to have a conversation with them. So really what my focus is on the teachers. So when I'm doing a preschool, my focus is really on educating the teachers. When I focus on education, I'm not sitting there talking about the physiology. I'm not talking about really in-depth stuff. I will usually mention that, I'll ask the audience what's unique about a snake's tongue, and most of the time they know. It's amazing how much information the kids have these days on reptiles. Maybe it's because of the internet, but almost every question I'm asking these days, more and more, I'm getting the right answer. What's unique about a snake's eyes? They don't have eyelids. Do snakes lay eggs, or do they have live birth? So I keep it simple, but it's just amazing how much fun I have. And so I was wondering if at this point in time, if you guys had any questions, we would go ahead and start with questions and answers. If you guys have any questions. So yeah.
Brian, what did you have as a boy? What kind of pets did you have at home?
I had,
Repeat it again.
okay, sure. Yeah, I had dogs and cats, mice and rats, lizards. My record for blue bellies is 52 in one day. My record for alligator lizards is 12. I had pigeons. I competitively raced pigeons for 25 years. I was in FFA, so I had a pig. I had a beef cow, or beef cattle, a Hereford steer. I had sheep. Again, when I graduated, when I was in high school, I competitively raced pigeons. That was a blast. I can't tell you how much fun that was. And then when I graduated from high school, I worked with a veterinarian that specialized in exotics. So I've held mountain lions in my arms. I've had them purr and rub up against me. Cheetahs, the same way. Cheetahs are amazing. I worked with wolves, chimps, chimpanzees. If you've ever held a chimpanzee, it's such a cool experience because they actually hold on to you. It's sort of like a boa constrictor. When you're holding on to a ball python, you pretty much have to hang on to that snake. But when you're holding on to a chimp, it's just hanging on to you. It's really cool. And I just kind of give you guys up to date. 2 days ago, I just bought a golden retriever puppy. So I have an English cream golden retriever now. His name is Tucker. And so my wife and I just fell in love with him, first sight. And so, I breed and sell my own. I breed my own rats. I produce about 500 to 600 rats per month. I have over 100 snakes at home. But the main thing that I do and I really focus on is the educational presentations. That's what pays my bills, and that's where I really have so much fun. It's amazing the types of questions that I get from little kids, whether they're 3 years old or 30 years old. So what my focus is when I'm doing, Bud, do you have a question? Go ahead.
Do snakes hear?
Yes, but they don't hear sound, they feel it. There may be some people in here because you guys are not ignorant of this, but snakes have bones in their jaw. I think they're called
vibration.
They sense vibration, and I think they're called the quadrate bones.
That's why my snake always,
Tony, am I right there? Or
that's
Edgar?
why my snake always
Anybody
freaks
know?
out at night.
And so one of the things I talk about when I bring my animals out is when I bring the blue-tongued skink out, and mainly the reason why I have him is to teach the audience the major differences between snakes and lizards. So lizards will have, some of them have legs, arms, and claws, some of them don't. Legless lizards don't, glass snakes don't. But one thing that all lizards have in common is that they all have ears. And usually you can actually see the eardrum right there at the ear slot. Even especially with Tegu's eardrum is right there. It's just right there. So a lot of what I do is just to try to take the fear factor out of the audience. So one of the things that I say to the audience, and when I say this, I get rolling eyes, I get people that are disgusted with me, but I always say to my audience, if you like puppies, you're gonna love snakes. Because in my opinion, snakes and puppies have about the same temperament. And I tell people that I'm a herper. I go up in the hills catching wild snakes all the time. You guys should check out my videos and photographs on Instagram. I have about 750 videos on YouTube. I haven't done YouTube for about 4 years or so, but I'm almost active on Instagram daily. And when I'm catching wild snakes, if you know how to catch them, calmly and gently, I haven't been bit in years. And I'm catching probably over 100 wild snakes per year. Go ahead, bud.
Another thing is you compare them to puppies is with most pythons is if you look, they have kind of a puppy face.
Yeah, one of the things that I do that get me, and my wife hates it when I do this, but when you consider that you have an audience full of children that literally are scared to death. And more than the children, it's the adults. The adults are freaked out. And so what I do is when I grab a snake out of its, this is what I bring, the same one to every program that I do. So I'll tell the people that if you like puppies, you'll love snakes. And then I'll do this. Now this snake, I have never taken this snake out before. This is the first time this snake has ever been out of my snake room. So these are not my, these are just holdbacks. These are not my, my crew, if you will. So they don't know that they're supposed to be kissed, but I kiss my snakes. My wife hates it, but my audiences love it because it takes them, it helps to take them from being afraid to turning that switch off so that they can learn that this is not that dangerous, aggressive animal. I'll tell them that, you know, I've been handling snakes all my life. I've never, since I was 5 years old, I had my first snake, which was a garter snake. My grandfather caught it and gave it to me. I've never been attacked by a snake. I know hundreds of people, including all you guys, and I've never, all over the country, I know a lot of people, and I've never met a person that's ever been attacked by a snake. Now don't get me wrong, I've been bit hundreds of times, but I've also been bit by hundreds of mice, rats, dogs, cats, you name it. You start working with animals, you're gonna get bit. It doesn't matter what. I've been bit by sparrows, lizards, pigeons, doves, hawks. I don't think I've ever been bit by an owl. But so I tell my audiences that if you like puppies, and that's another thing that starts to turn that page, so that by the time I'm ready to finish my program, I let all of my animals go onto a table, and everyone that wants to gets to touch every animal that I bring. So we go from a very non-chaotic group like this, and at the end of the program, everybody's just running around with snakes. And what's really cool is over 10 years doing this full-time, hundreds and hundreds of programs, and like I said, over 50,000 children, no one has ever been bit by any of my snakes. And that includes, you know, some of the larger pythons too. Sweetie, you have a question?
Well, when I like the puppies, I didn't like snakes. I just like cats.
Okay, sure, I like cats too. Yeah, go ahead.
If there's a different breed of snake, and they like two different breeds and they breed, what can you get out of that?
Well, that's called hybridizing, and there's not much of a market in the herp community for hybridized snakes, unless you guys can tell me. Now, in the colubrids, they do have some of the, you know, like the Pueblan milk snake bred to the Honduran milk snake. That's a beautiful animal. I know that they have bred cow kings to corn snakes, but there's not much of a market for it. They have also bred ball pythons with Burmese pythons. But there's just not much of a market, and there's not much of a price. And so, because one of the things we do this for, at least me, I want to make as much money as I can. That's just as plain and simple as it is. I'm not going to be doing this that much longer, so my goal is to literally make as much money as I can and stash as much money as I can away in the banks, so that when there comes a time, whether I'm too old or whatever, or injured or whatever, when I can't do this anymore, I'll be able to live on the money that I've made. So when I'm producing ball pythons, I'm literally trying to produce the highest value ball pythons that I can. I don't have snakes that are worth $10,000 and $15,000, $20,000, but I do have some animals that are worth $2,000 and $3,000, maybe up to $5,000. So those are the animals that I'm focusing on. Mainly the pied and the clown projects. These two are actually pied clowns. This is an orange dream pied clown. This is a pastel leopard pied clown. And this is a super orange dream exanthic. An MJ, Marcus Jane exanthic. And this one down here, most of you probably wouldn't be able to guess what this is, but this is a Burmese python. This is a pied, albino pied Burmese python. He's only about 2.5 months old. I've only had him for about a little bit more than a month. I just pulled him out of, what do you call it? When you put your animals in a certain, what do you say? What'd you say?
Quarantine.
Quarantine, thank you. That just went crazy. And then this guy down here, and this is where we get into some interesting stuff. This is a pastel fire enchi yellow belly pied. So there's 5 genes involved, 5 or 6 genes. And eventually what I'm going to do is breed him to the Pied Clown Project. So that I'll have, in this case, I'll have pastel, leopard, and really it would be super pastel, leopard, yellow belly, enchi, banana pied clowns. About 7 gene traits in one snake. And the value is going to be way up there. So anyway, when I'm doing my programs, it's my focus is to take the fear out of the whole experience. Because remember, I'm working with kids, and those kids are usually scared to death, and especially the adults. But the kids are the ones that I'm focused most on. So that when I'm talking to the snakes, I mean, I'll talk baby talk to them. I'll make sure that the experience that I'm having or that I'm showing that I'm having is fun. And so when the kids are coming up to the table, they're right in there. I'll start putting snakes over the kids' shoulders, and they respond like crazy. The adults, on the other hand, are a totally different animal. I had a guy the other day. He was the father of the birthday child I was doing, and what I do, and I'm going to show you guys what I do, and you guys will see what I do to help my audiences get more or less afraid of the animals. So who would like to come up, adult, to help me with the next segment of the program? Anyone? Come on, reptile people. Yeah, come on up, bud. And leave your snake with somebody else if you can. So this is what I typically do with either the principal of a school or a teacher or the mom or the dad at the birthday parties that I'm doing. And what is your name, bud?
My name is Cole.
Cole, I'm Brian. Glad to meet you. All right. Cole, you're a brave guy, right? Okay. And because you are so brave, I'm going to ask you to blindfold yourself.
Normal.
Yeah. Okay, Cole, now I want you to pivot to your right. Stop right there. And I want you to promise everyone that you will not remove that blindfold no matter what you hear.
I will not.
Okay, so stay right there, bud.
I love you.
Okay. Cole. Yeah, I know, huh? That's why I say don't remove that blindfold. So have you ever been kissed by a lizard?
I don't know.
Now remember, the person when I'm talking to them at the programs that I do, they're not a reptile person. They are, at this point, probably freaking out. They're blindfolded. They have no idea what I have in my hand. When I typically bring this guy out, because I've had him hidden, the audience, because they're all a bunch of people that freak out with these guys, they start screaming. It just goes crazy.
So I hear you opening the box. I think back to the start where you said you have one that's hidden away somewhere.
Oh, I have more than one, but
Oh.
we'll start from here. Okay, so Cole, have you ever been kissed by a lizard?
I still maybe.
Okay. Well, we'll say that's a yes. Okay.
Okay.
So just relax, okay? And you're gonna get kissed again. Okay. So what does that feel like? Look at a little neck kisses here. What's that feel?
I don't know how to describe it.
Okay, we're gonna go over to the other side. And we're gonna get some kisses over here.
So that I can
He
feel.
loves the ears, by the way. Let's see if I can get that ear. There you go. Okay, Cole. Go ahead and remove your blindfold and meet your new best friend. Yeah, here's the. Okay, guys, let's give Cole a big round of applause. Good job. Thank you, bud. So yeah, that's part of what I do. And that's more at the end of my program. By the way, if you don't know, this is a black and white Tegu. Tegus come from Argentina. He's about 3 feet long. He weighs about 10 pounds. But what's really cool about him is that when I let him go in my backyard, which is almost daily during the summertime, if I sit on my lawn, he'll walk right over to me, right into my lap, and go to sleep. He's like a big puppy. He and I have a great relationship. Okay, I have one more surprise for you guys. And again, I'm gonna need an adult to come up and help me. So who would like to come up? Come on up.
Oh no.
And what is your name? Luke. Hi, I'm Brian. Glad to meet you. Luke,
Oh no.
great guy, right? And because you are so brave, I want you to put that on. And just like Cole did, I want you to promise everyone here that you will not remove that blindfold no matter what you hear.
I will not remove the blindfold. no
Okay,
matter what
so
I-
Luke, just give me a minute and I'll be right back.
Oh no.
And you can imagine what the audiences are thinking at this time. And remember, these people are not reptile people. And remember, the person that I call up is freaking out.
Sharp teeth.
Okay, Luke, you're gonna feel some weight on your left shoulder, and then you're gonna feel some weight on your right shoulder. You okay?
I'm good.
Now, the other day, I was doing a reptile birthday party, and the dad started crying. And the dad was as big as this guy. And I kind of freaked out, and I thought, I don't want you to cry. And he was literally crying. So I quickly took the snake from him. But at the same time, in my mind, I was laughing my head off. Okay, Luke, I'm going to gently remove your blindfold. And now you can meet your new best friend. So just reach out with both hands and support the neck area. So this is Clementine. Clementine is what we call, as you guys probably know, an albino Burmese python. He's about 9 or 10 feet long. He weighs about 40 pounds or so. But what's really cool about her is that she's only a baby. She's only 2 years old. Eventually she'll get to about 12 to 15, maybe even 20 feet long. Hi, sweetie. And probably weigh up to about 100 pounds, 100 grams. And as you guys can see, super gentle. So yeah, that's how I do my programs. I should also mention over 50,000 children, if I didn't mention that before, have handled my animals. We have never had a single issue. And the people that, when they leave my programs, I'll hear things like, it's the best party they've ever been to. And what's really cool about it is that I have just as much fun watching everybody's reaction and watch the kids and the adults. In fact, we did Google's Christmas party about 5 years ago at the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco for 750 people, and they just went crazy. They just loved it. It was great. All right, let's give Luke a big round of applause. All right. Thank you, buddy. Good job. Yes,
I was
Cole.
actually kind of hoping with me that it would just be a big snake over my shoulders.
What's that?
I was hoping it'd just be a big snake over
Come
my
here.
shoulders.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let these guys go. Not these guys, because these are not my normal groups here. These are some of my holdbacks of the year. Now what's interesting is that this little guy is an albino pied Burmese python, just like this one. This guy's only about 3 months old, maybe 2 months old. Eventually, he'll get about this big. Probably after about, probably 2 or 3 years. This is a female. Females get bigger. There's gonna come a time when I'm probably gonna donate her to you guys. Because she's probably gonna get too big for me.
Females are bigger, and that's why you thought Moon was a girl.
What's that?
That's why I thought Moon was a girl. Females are bigger.
Oh yeah, they get bigger. Same with birds of prey, right? Birds of prey, yeah. Yeah, if you see a pair of red tails standing together on a telephone pole or something, usually the smaller one, it's like dwarf. Okay, just stay right there. Just there. The female is the larger one. All right, turn around. Show everybody how brave you are. And let go here. Oops, and then just reach out and grab her. Just a big puppy. So what I'm going to do from here, and are there any more questions? Yes.
Do you have a rotation of snakes for your shows and more snakes for bigger parties like Google, or?
Now with Google, I think we brought 12 snakes with Google, but it was really this guy's, or the other Burmese python I used to have. It was his show. That's what everybody. This is the snake that everybody wants to hold. Even the little kids that are 2 and 3 years old, they want to hold him, and we do. We let them hold him. But yeah, I bring pretty much the same snakes all the time.
And then one more question.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll see it when you let them crawl around and living. Do you have to stop and say like, here's the rules, or do you ever?
So at the end of my programs, I basically say that if these are not toys, remember I'm talking to kids. Kids can be, and sometimes I work with autistic children and special needs children, and I will explain to them that they're not toys. Please remember that we need to treat them with respect. I tell them do not pinch them, squeeze them, or pull on them. And I also say do not grab them by their heads. From there, I'll explain that the reason why we call those snakes ball pythons, or except the berm that's over there, is because when they feel scared or threatened, they'll actually roll up into a ball so tight that you can actually play catch with them. And the reason why they do that is to protect their heads. So watch what happens when I grab this super gentle snake, but watch what happens when I gently grab her by her head. You can see she's pulling back. She's telling me in her own way that she doesn't like it. And the reason I tell the kids and the adults that is because the last thing I want them to do is to do something to these snakes that are going to scare them. Remember, animals that are afraid are going to do one of two things. They're going to try to get away, which is what she just did. But if they can't get away, they will protect themselves. Fight or flight. When a snake is trying to protect itself, its initial reaction is to bite. And I do not want anybody to get bit by my snakes. I had a boa constrictor bite a kid in the head one time. This is 20-something years ago. The kids started bleeding everywhere. The adults were freaking out. I ended up not charging for the party at all. Now what happened was I called the father that evening to apologize and whatever, and then I followed up with another phone call the day after when the child went to school, and his dad told me, he says, you know what? My son went to school today. He was bragging about how he was bit by an 8-foot boa constrictor, and he was the hero of the school. So it turned out positive, but it could have turned out just the opposite, just as easy. But you have a question? What's that, bud? Oh, that's great. Any more questions? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let my crew go onto the table. You guys, if you want, come up to the table, pick them up, put them over your shoulders, bring the kids. I'm going to put these guys back here, because they aren't going to be that as gentle, probably, or they'll probably be more afraid. And also, it's interesting. The other day, I was doing a reptile birthday party, and I found the blue-tongued skink eating a pepperoni pizza. He's actually eaten pepperoni pizzas twice.
Brian, that should be a children's book.
Yeah.
All I think of is it's just big puppy dogs.
Yeah, they are so gentle. And I've never seen any stress indicators that the animals are stressing out. Sometimes I do 4 and 5 programs a day, and the animals are just fine. They're fine the next day. They never, very rarely ball up, which tells me that they're not afraid. And yeah, they're being passed around from one kid to another. Sometimes I do assemblies of up to 650 people, and I let every single child at least touch the animals. It's a blast.
Ryan, are you going to be interviewed on proper royals?
What's that?
Are you going to be interviewed on proper royals?
I don't know proper world. I'm, let's see, yeah, I think Adam from, okay, yes, I am going to be interviewed on them, with that show. Yeah. Yeah, Adam contacted me a couple of weeks ago, and I think we've already set it up. But
I thought I heard it right.
yeah, I can't remember. But check out my videos on YouTube, you guys. I do have a lot of educational programs or videos, and again, I'm more active, almost on a day-to-day with Instagram, and I'm even videotaping the animals that I'm finding in the wild. I find a lot of San Francisco garter snakes, a lot of rattlesnakes. Oh, I almost forgot. I was going to tell you guys my rendition of the story of Lazarus. So, Cole, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to take her because I'm on her.
She keeps going down to my elbow.
Oh, she's a crawler, so just hang on to her. Okay, about 30 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, I got a phone call from a neighbor that had just moved into the neighborhood, and she had found out that I had reptiles, so she wanted to come over and check out the reptiles. So she brought her kids. I said, yeah, sure, bring them over. So she brought the kids over, and as I was showing her my collection, and my collection was in the garage, she asked a question. She said, how come all these animals are reptiles and snakes in general are in separate cages? And I started to explain to her that they were colubrids. A lot of them were king snakes. So I told her that in the wild, these snakes would eat each other. And then as we're continuing the little tour, she says, well, then how come those two snakes are together? And I started freaking out, because what had happened was I had a plexiglass partition in one of my cages where I was actually able to make 4 cages out of one. And what had happened was there was a Sinaloan milk snake in one of the partitions and a California king snake in the other. The plexiglass thing had fallen over, so the Sinaloan milk snake I can't remember if the Cal King went into the Sinaloan's cage or the Sinaloan went into the Cal King's cage, but the Cal King was eating it. So I nonchalantly, and it was probably 90-something degrees that day, I pulled the Sinaloan milk snake out of the Cal King's throat, and it was deader than a doornail. It was as limp as a noodle, no tongue action, no breaths, no nothing. And I was CPR certified. So I wondered if I could give the Sinaloan milk snake mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. So I took the Sinaloan milk snake, and don't ask me how I thought about this. I put it in the palm of my hands. I curled my fingers over its head and used this part of my hand as a straw and blew into my hand and laid the snake's body onto my other arm and was actually able to see its lungs expanding. So I would do that 2 or 3 times. I would then hold the snake and find its heart. And because it was dead, at least I thought I was finding his heart, I would actually start to palpate the heart and start giving it compressions. Hey, Jeff. And then I would put it on my washing machine and I would flick it with my fingers. And we know that most snakes are head shy, so that hopefully that was going to stimulate the snake to get upset or mad or start to breathe. I did that for about 15 minutes. It started to breathe. And it continued to breathe. I continued to do what I was doing. Before about an hour, the snake was almost fine. The next day, I fed it a mouse. And then I ended up writing an article for Reptiles magazine, and we called the Sinaloan milk snake Lazarus, because I had brought it back from the dead. And I have some copies of that page that I wrote for Reptiles magazine. It was in the Living with Reptiles section. So if you guys are interested, grab one of these, and it kind of will make for some interesting reading. It was a very weird experience. I've actually done it 3 or 4 times since then. I walked into a pet shop one day, and there were 2 ball pythons eating the same mouse. One of the ball pythons ended up eating the other one, and was the other ball python was halfway down the other one's throat. So I pulled out the ball python out of the snake's throat and started giving it mouth to mouth, and was able to revive it. So I've done it 2 or 3 times, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. You'll see this picture on the front. This was the picture of, I went to a cemetery and actually decided to take these snakes with me, and I ended up having them pose on a cross. And what was interesting is there was a San Jose policeman at the cemetery, and he was watching what I was doing, and before you know it, he came stomping over to me, and he started thinking I was in some kind of a cult. And then I thought, you know what, and in my mind I just thought, why don't I just tell him what happened? I said, well, this snake here killed and ate this snake. I gave this snake mouth to mouth and revived it, and now I'm writing an article for Reptiles magazine, and it just came out, and the guy looks at me and goes, wow, that's really cool. And so he was fine with it, but at first I thought I was going to be arrested, because you're not supposed to take photographs at a cemetery, which I never knew that. So anyway, are there any questions or any more questions before you guys come up and start handling these animals? All right, then come on up.
Wait, hang on. Let's go ahead and give a big hand for Brian.
Thank you, guys.
I want to make sure you guys all come up and that want to pet the animals, but first I gotta get the group picture out of the way. Will we have room back there?
Yes, so let's go behind the option.
Okay, so all the kids will be in the front, and then can you get in there in the middle?
Yeah, why don't we bring this Burmese python over there,
right in the middle.
and let's put him right on the
So kids in the front, Brian will get right behind the kids, everybody else file around him, okay? Everybody go to the back, we'll take the group picture and do the raffle.